Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I am so excited to welcome Radhika Raizada, whom I have known for so many years and followed her journey as a Wonder Woman. Radhika, a warm welcome to you.
Thank you, Shivangi. So nice to see you again. It's been a
So
while.
lovely to see you. It's really been a while. There was a time when you and me were working so intensively. I would love for listeners and viewers that you track your journey a little bit, and what brought you to where you are today.
Okay. Interesting question. It made me reflect a little bit as well, Shivangi. I grew up in a small town in India. And actually, as I was reflecting back, I thought, wow, I had a very idyllic childhood in many ways. Small town, so great from a family perspective, great friends that I'm still very close to, amazing school, and the opportunity to really use my time to both sort of excel academically, but also in a number of different activities, and gave me the foundation for what I think was my first leadership experience, being the head girl of the school. All of that brought a lot of self confidence overall. From there, I went on to study also in India. But then one fine day, I got married and followed my husband to London with a lot of aspiration and one suitcase full of clothes. That's when I thought my currency was my qualifications, but it was a fairly rude shock to realize that none of those qualifications meant anything to people who did not have the context of where I grew up. And and from there, I tried a number of different things, but from the perspective of finding a role that I would really like, I felt I actually did not have that luxury because my husband, who joined a management consulting firm, soon had a situation where the firm closed shop. And we were like 3 or 4 months into a new country with our, one suitcase each, still having to figure out living expenses. So I took really the first job
Mm.
that I found, thrown into a consulting environment, went to a new client the first day with little or no knowledge of what I was expected to do. And that's where I think, in many ways, my journey began. And I realized my real currency was no longer my qualifications, but it is the perseverance. In many ways, it was the confidence in yourself. And from there on, I moved into consulting across the healthcare pharma sector, which was really where my heart was, and moved into Pfizer, who was one of my clients at one point in time, about 17 years ago, nearly, and have been here ever since. So that
Yes,
gives
and various countries. I mean, moving from the UK now to Dubai. I'm just wondering, in that journey, is there a cultural tradition or a practice, that still makes you sort of grounded, that you still maintain?
Yeah. I mean, it might be similar, I feel, to many cultures, but it is usually food and festivals that bring people together. And so it has been with us. Um, and in many ways, it wasn't limited to just festivals, because festivals, you would relate to this. Sometimes some of the festivals we celebrated in India, Diwali, for example, often would fall on a weekday. So you would not have the same feeling. But bringing friends together to celebrate together, that became a family in itself. So that's something I think we have continued to do in different shapes and forms over the years.
Right, right. You have made that move, from India to the UK, now UK to Dubai. I'm just wondering, what does home mean to you today? With home, often we associate this whole idea of a sense of belonging, right? How have these notions shifted in your mind as you continue on your journey?
Actually, it's a very deep question in some ways because, like you mentioned, uh, I grew up in India, moved to London, lived there for 20 plus years, and then also made a shift to Dubai a couple of years ago. So uh, early on, you found your anchor where you grew up. So there was a lot of things that I think we missed. But once you have kids, I realize you start to find your roots
Mm.
in a new place. So, you buy a house, you have kids in school, you form your friendships, and that shifted the sense of home to being in London at that point in time. And it was a lot around, home is where you can be yourself. So, sense of belonging was where you could be yourself. And London did give me that sense of belonging just because of the intermingling of people from different backgrounds, different cultures. And actually, in my work, where I've largely worked in international roles with people coming with very different nationalities, backgrounds, etc. So that was really a great place to call home. And then we moved to Dubai. And currently live kind of between London and Dubai. And that made me think about that again. And I had to think about home without the spatial boundaries, if I can put it that way. And I thought, yes, home is where you can be yourself, but where you can connect with the same values with people. And that is so important to me as I've grown older. It is having those values that you really center on.
Yes, yes. Have you found it easy or more challenging to make deeper friendships? Especially if you move to, like you said, 20 years in London, now 2, 3 years in Dubai. Like, how was your experience? If you can even remember the first couple of years in London versus the first couple of years now in the
Mhm.
Middle East, how do you
Mhm.
compare and contrast it in your mind?
Um, Actually, I wouldn't say easier or difficult, but different. It was very different stages of life as well. I would say when you were younger in your 20s, you took in all experiences, you were out all the time, you met a number of people, so you intermingled in different ways. What am I looking for now is certainly what you were saying, much deeper relationships, but I've connected with people from different backgrounds in many different ways. I love reading, for example, just to give you an idea. So, when I moved to Dubai, I started a book club with one or two people that I got to know who shared the same interest. And then we pulled a few more people, and we were able to together go through many books that were set in the region, and which gave you such a much more enriched understanding of the culture and the nuances and how people really think about things. So I think some of that I haven't necessarily struggled with, but it takes time to develop those relationships for sure.
Mhm. Is there anything surprising or unexpected, Radhika, that you discovered about yourself because of this, redefinition, right? I mean, and sometimes as Wonder Woman, we will go to one country. I have done that and, made a life here, worked internationally, but kept the base. Sometimes there are Wonder Women who are changing countries every 3 or 4 years, right? And like redefining with a new culture, etc. But I'm just wondering, in your own experience, was there something unexpected that you have discovered about yourself in the last
Uh,
couple of years in Dubai?
I mean, it's very interesting question again because yes, you're totally right. You completely change your context when you move countries and roles. You change expectations. But one of the things I love is the ability to be able to absorb from those experiences. There are very different values and notions that you're able to absorb. And I found that I can still now be my authentic self and
Mm.
still grow in those situations. So, surprising, yes, there were lots of situations where I thought I have no idea how to do this. Few months down the line, you feel, yes, I managed to do it anyway. And I haven't hesitated to ask for help if I needed it. That's one thing that has probably changed over the years. But I
Are
found
you
people
finding it
help willingly.
easier to ask for help now?
I would say I find it easier to ask for help now than I did in the past. I
Okay.
think you all realize that not everything is perfect. We will never be perfect. There are other people, and people are so willing to help.
No, that's interesting because I hear from a lot of women I interview that the more settled you feel, the less able they are to ask for help. And maybe it alludes to the same thing because you're in a new place, and
Mm,
so many things that where you can like, I simply don't know, right? And maybe
mm,
it's easier, but it's also a sign of confidence, I think, to be able to ask for help, right? Because you do not believe that you are this know-it-all and you can figure everything out. You just ask
mm.
for help. Though for a lot of strong independent women, it's very challenging to ask for help.
Yeah. It might be, Shivangi, also. I mean, somehow, even though I've worked in the same company for many years, I changed roles every couple of years. So
Mm.
I did get put into very uncomfortable situations many times.
Yeah.
And some of those times I realized that there was no way I could do it unless I asked people for help. So I was in the same place, but I had no other way to get
Right.
things done. And that's when I realized that actually you only need to ask. I've always been amazed by how much people are willing to
Mm.
help.
Mm.
So,
No.
so no, I have no shame in asking for help.
Oh, that's great. I mean, do you remember, Radhika, a time when you took on advice that was offered to you? I mean, it could be a mentor, could be a peer, could be a manager. Advice that was given to you in the context of this whole idea of, growing as a professional, and advice that you feel either turned out to be really great, or you think, oh wow, I would have been better off if I hadn't taken that advice. I'm
Hmm.
always curious to find some such.
Interesting question again. So, it's it made me think. I wouldn't say it was necessarily advice, but it has happened a couple of times professionally. I would call it a nudge. Nudge from someone who was a mentor at some point, which made me think about what my next steps should be and
Mhm.
allowed me, or how can I put it? It gave me the courage to aim for certain things that I wasn't sure I was prepared for at that point in time. So, advice was good. From that perspective, it increased my level of confidence overall. Um, but it wasn't necessarily given as advice, right? It wasn't something I was seeking. So, I really valued it from that perspective.
Hmm, hmm, hmm.
Mm.
Yeah, let's flip that a little bit, right? What would your advice be for somebody who is at this moment having made the decision of, living outside their home country, but are feeling a little bit stuck, feeling I talk in my book Wonder Woman of this, what I call as the unholy trinity, right? It's always
Mm.
intersectionality of biases. There is the gender, then there is the ethnicity, then you have your starting point, your professional career, then there's anti-immigration, there's like, and all of these, they get compounded, right? And sometimes when you are sort of fighting through all of these biases, you start even wondering, was this the best thing that I did, leaving my home context and redefining, and sometimes you start second guessing the whole idea, right? So I'm just wondering, if somebody is going through such a conundrum, what advice would you give, Radhika?
Um, so my perspective on this, Shivangi, is a little bit alternative, maybe. Um, I think one would need to. I mean, there's nowhere in this world that there aren't some kind of biases, dynamics, or other things that do not exist. It would exist in some shape or form in our own home context as well. So I'm a very strong believer in maybe two things. One is your own self. So, do you believe in yourself? And if you do, then you will be able to shape things around you. It will be easy or difficult, right, at different points in time, but there is an opportunity. So, my advice really would be you and let the world adapt to
Mm.
that. But equally, I find, and that this is a difficult one, and this maybe also comes in to that Wonder Woman concept. And earlier in life, I would say one would try to fit into a mold, right? Now I would completely shift that. I feel more comfortable as I'm older to say what I feel is right. So being your authentic, not just being yourself, being your authentic self, I think really helps you craft that role. So the ability to be able to do that, I think, really helps you move along much more seamlessly and feeling good about yourself.
Very much so, very much so.
Mhm.
Thank you so much, Radhika. This has been a really interesting conversation. I think it's very inspiring to see, that you could redefine yourself and go to a completely different culture, to a different country. Even though, I mean, 20 years in a country, you feel quite settled, right? Like you said,
Yes.
feels like home, and then you are like reinventing home again. So yeah, thanks so much for sharing your journey, and I look forward to keeping in touch with you.
Thank you, Shivangi. Super enjoyed the conversation and your reflections as well. Take
Thank
care.